I want to talk about the history of how we decide to go to war in America, who has the authority to take us to war, how that's changed, and how that informs what's happening in Iran and where things will go in the future. The U.S. Constitution deliberately splits war powers between Congress and the President. Article 1, Section 8 gives the Congress the authority to declare war, raise and fund armies, maintain a navy, and regulate the armed forces. Meanwhile, Article 2, Section 2 designates the President as Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. military. The framers intentionally divided those powers. Having just fought a revolution against a king, they wanted to prevent a single executive from unilaterally dragging the country into war. James Madison wrote in 1793 that the executive is the branch of power most interested in war and most prone to it, which is why the Constitution gives the power to initiate war to Congress. For much of American history, the U.S. generally followed that constitutional model. Congress has issued 5 formal declarations of war: the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. During this period, the president still directed military operations as commander-in-chief, but Congress formally authorized the conflict itself and also provided all of the ongoing funding and frequently made individual decisions about how we were going to allocate resources in the course of fighting the war. The modern shift began during the Cold War. In June 1950, President Harry S. Truman committed U.S. forces to the Korean War without asking the Congress for a formal declaration of war. Instead, Truman described it as a police action conducted under United Nations authority following UN Security Resolution 83. A decade later, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution on August 7, 1964. The resolution authorized President Lyndon B. Johnson to take all necessary measures to repel attacks in Southeast Asia. That authorization became the legal basis for the large-scale U.S. war in Vietnam. Many members of Congress later argued that they had effectively given the president a blank check for war. After the Vietnam War, Congress tried to reassert its constitutional role. In 1973, Congress passed the War Powers Resolution over President Richard Nixon's veto. The law established 3 major rules. 1. Presidents must notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying U.S. forces into hostilities. 2. Military operations must end within 60 days unless Congress authorizes them. And 3. A 30-day withdrawal period is allowed, if needed, to safely remove troops. But every president since 1973, Republican and Democrat, has questioned whether the law is constitutionally binding on the commander-in-chief. After the September 11 attacks in 2001, Congress passed the Authorization for Use of Military Force, AUMF, on September 18, 2001. It authorized the president to use force against those responsible for the attacks and any groups that harbored them. Over time, that authorization was used to justify military operations in multiple countries, including Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Somalia. A separate authorization, the 2002 Iraq AUMF, was passed in 2002 before the invasion of Iraq. Critics argue that these authorizations have effectively allowed presidents to wage a global war without new congressional approval. Today, the U.S. rarely issues formal declarations of war. Instead, presidents typically rely on broad congressional authorizations for military force or their commander-in-chief authority for limited military operations. Now, many scholars argue that over time, Congress has gradually ceded more power to the presidency when it comes to initiating military action, and that raises the question we're seeing in the news today. If the Constitution gives the Congress the power to declare war, why has Congress been so reluctant to use it or to restrain presidents who go to war without it?